Let me get to the right place. Okay, here we go. At this time, I would like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Hall.
Present.
Solis.
Present.
Pike.
Here.
Segura.
Here.
Tarantino.
Here.
Aguirre.
Here.
Adama.
Here.
Thank you. The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues. One,
Want to do the pledge?
oh yes, we need to do all that first. Thank you. Was it? So how about Mr. Solis leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence? All stand, please.
Put your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Solis. The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues: student expulsions, suspended expulsions, reinstatements, Education Code Section 48916-48918, students identified by ID number. 2, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, Government Code Section 54957. Conference 3, Conference of Legal Counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. And 4, Conference of Labor Negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6. The board took the following action. Moved by Tarantino, seconded by Solis, to accept the administrative hearing panel's recommendation to approve the reinstatement of one student with a vote of Hall yes, Pike yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. Moved by Solis, seconded by Tarantino, to approve the request for leave of absence for one certificated employee with a vote of Hall yes, Pike yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. Thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the August 24th, 2020 regular board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I will second it. Moved by Hall, seconded by Segura. So that's all handled. We'll now have provide an opportunity for SDCO.
You need a vote, please.
Oh yeah, vote please.
Adama.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Solis.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Segura.
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Diane. We will now provide an opportunity for San Diego County Office of Ed Representative Dr. Mark Scavarna to make any comments if he chooses.
None tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move and have an update from the acting superintendent, Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, President Segura, trustees, and members of the public. Good evening to tonight's board meeting. Since our last board meeting, our team has been busy. On Saturday, August 15th, we participated in a back to school kickoff virtual town hall convened by the Honorable Assembly Member, Dr. Shirley Weber. At this event, we presented our reopening plan, took questions from community members, also had an opportunity to hear from State Superintendent Tony Thurman about reopening plans from across the state. With few exceptions, most districts are beginning the school year, similar to us, in distance learning mode, with plans to reopen campuses in a phased-in approach. Please check out our district website for the latest information about distance learning, the San Diego County COVID-19 watch list, and our reopening plan. I also had an insightful conversation with Isaac Lozano, a 12th grade student from Bonita Vista High School. Recently, Isaac had an opinion letter printed in the New York Times titled, "Remote Learning is Hard, Losing Family Members is Worse." This poignant piece reminds us all of exactly what is at stake regarding our community's responsibility during the current COVID-19 pandemic. I would encourage you to read this important article, which we have posted on the district's website. Thank you, Isaac, for those important words. Today, our district closed the sale of our surplus property on 3rd Avenue here in Chula Vista. Special thanks to purchasing manager George Williams and the finance, planning, and legal teams for their assistance. Lastly, this evening, I want to address a very important topic to our students, the United States Department of Education's Title IX final rule. We received quite a number of messages from our students regarding the August 14th, 2020 rule changes. Though there may be some public controversy about changes to Title IX regulations, the district's obligation and commitment to respond to, investigate, and act upon reports of sexual harassment, sexual assault, or other violations to the Title IX law remain the same under California state law and district regulations. Further, we look forward in the coming weeks to working with staff and students to develop and provide additional resources for our students related to reporting and preventing teen sexual and/or dating violence. I personally would like to thank our student board representative, Desiree Adamos, for her advocacy and leading this important work. Thank you, Trustee Adamos. And thank you all for the continued opportunity to serve our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rigetti. Now we'll have a report from our student board representative, Desiree Adamos.
Thank you. So I first want to start off with this ethnic studies initiative that a lot of more students have started to become involved in. It's really snowballing into a really greater effect. Recently, a Voice of San Diego article was published about some of the students in our district and their efforts to push ethnic studies to the principals at their school sites in order to implement it into their master curriculum. And some examples that I want to point out is that me and other student organizers have reached out to UCSD professors and San Diego Unified School District ethnic studies educators about how we could help students and teachers develop a culturally sensitive understanding of ethnic studies. On top of that, we have been trying to contact our principals and our counselors with the students want for ethnic studies as well. And to add on, I would also like to talk about the sexual assault kind of thing that is going around as well. I am very thankful to be working with district representatives that care about the health and safety of our students to make sure that they are in a respected and comfortable environment. And I've been working with Dr. Moore and a few other student organizers with some resources and supports that we can provide to students to ensure them that we are a space where they can feel comfortable. And I also want to add on to that with the ASB President's meeting, as always, it goes pretty well. We just discuss how distance learning is going for all of us there. And we've also discussed these initiatives as well, which they do push out to their students. And
Thank you. You've been busy. So with that, we'll move to the President's statement. This is the point on the agenda. Am I correct, Deanne? I don't think we have a DLAC or a CBOC report.
Correct.
Okay, this is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the superintendent's office for review and report. Speakers' comments should refrain from using profanity and shall be presented in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation. Clerk of the board, go ahead.
The first comments are from Amy Young. I do not think that it is a wise decision to open the schools right before flu season. It's actually quite shocking that is barely ending. As a concerned parent, I would not want my kid to be one of the guinea pigs to go back to school, regardless of the safety precautions that will be happening. I feel like it would be better for kids to return to school after flu season and then follow safety protocols. Please reconsider opening right before flu season. I don't think it's fair for the teachers, staff, or the students to have to chance it when we can just wait a little bit longer. The next comments are from Cynthia Suero-Gabler. My name is Cynthia Suero-Gabler, and I am a community advocate for the Bay Terrace Phil-Am Senior Association, of which many have grandchildren attending schools within the Sweetwater Union High School District. This is my second letter expressing my disappointment in the recent unfair demotion of Mary Rose Peralta and Jason Josephat. I feel that it is important to discuss the principle of the matter, and yes, pun intended. The principle of the matter is that you have failed our Philippine community by your lack of diversity, inclusivity, and transparency. In a day and age where civil unrest, racial injustice, and gender inequality is at an all-time high, you have failed us. Your weak attempt to dismiss and silence us, scurrying our community along just to move on to the next item as if we are insignificant and beneath you, as if we are unworthy of being listened to as fellow human beings, is shameful and disgusting. According to Sweetwater Union High School District's Board Policy 4030, Non-Discrimination in Employment, this board policy states that the Board of Trustees prohibits unlawful discrimination against and/or harassment of district employees and job applicants on the basis of actual or perceived race, color, national origin, ancestry, religion, age, marital status, pregnancy, physical or mental disability, medical condition, veteran status, gender, sex or sexual orientation at any district site and/or activity. It also prohibits retaliation against any district employee or job applicant who complains, testifies, or in any way participates in the district's complaint procedures instituted pursuant to this policy. It requires any district employee who observes or has knowledge of an incident of unlawful discrimination or harassment to report the incident. However, based on your latest Sweetwater Racial Equity Report, of the 192 hires of certificated employees since December of 2018, there have only been 15 or 7.81% Philippine X hires compared to the 91, 47.4% Latinx and 70, 36.4% whites hired. Of the 157 classified hires since December of 2018, only 12, 7.6% are Philippine X compared to the 123, 78.3% Latinx. Equally disturbing is the demographics of teachers and administrators. There are 109 or 6.1% Filipinx teachers and 4.6% administrators and managers compared to the 738 or 41% Latinx teachers and 86 or 49.1% Latinx administrators and managers. These numbers tell a compelling story of your lack of diversity and inclusivity as it relates to anyone who is not Latinx or white. It does not reflect Board Policy 4030, but the complete opposite. I ask that you adhere to the 3 demands as previously stated in the initial letter by our Filipinx community members and make the necessary changes expeditiously. You have the chance to turn this around and show our Filipinx community that you value our voice, our culture, our educators, and our students. Which of you will be the champion our community needs? Who among you will stand up for what's right? Quote, get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. Congressman John Lewis. The next comments are from Juanita Santos Naku. I join our Filipino American community in their support to reinstate Ms. Mary Rose Peralta. Ms. Peralta is instrumental in establishing the Filipino language subject in the Poway Unified School District by being physically present in our meetings with the Poway Unified School District Board and school administrators. She was also one of my trainers and mentors who enabled me to become a Filipino language teacher with my degrees in nursing and pastoral care and counseling. There was shortage of teachers in the early 90s. I am a witness of her years of dedication and compassion for her students, not just inside the classroom, but to fight successfully for our language and culture in our San Diego community and school districts. I recommend the formation of the Filipino Advisory Council for guaranteed open communication between the school board and our community. The next comments are from Kathleen Cheers. Good evening. At a previous board meeting, a question was asked relative to the Cox discounted rates being offered to parents. While an answer was given, I believe it was in megabytes, and there was no follow-up questions asking for clarification of megabytes in comparison to hours of time spent on the internet. The reason I ask is because I have been contacted by several parents concerning their child is exceeding the $10 megabyte, and they, the parents, are now receiving Cox bills they cannot afford. Many households' parents have lost their jobs. How can they be expected to pay increased internet bills? Public education is supposed to be free. Then there are the homes where there is no internet. While you are offering hotspots, is anyone taking into consideration the heat we are experiencing? Additionally, not every parent on the east side has the means for the child to travel to a hotspot on the west side or San Ysidro. What about those deserving students? I acknowledge these are unprecedented times. Having said that, we, the community, are in the dark as to if or how the needs of our SPED students are being met. Dr. Aguirre, what is being done to direct additional resources for SPED student support? Where are the IAs? Is it true you haven't signed contracts with them? Is it true many of the IAs do not have computers assigned to them due to a shortage of laptops? How can these be expected to sit in a virtual classroom with no added support? Prior to the change in leadership, the teachers union often spoke on behalf of our special ed students and its SEA members. Have those issues been addressed? Are they no longer concerned? Is it true there are no mild mod special ed classes, opting instead for these SPED students to be lumped together in regular classrooms, again with no added support to assist in their disabilities? In a nutshell, what specifically are the changes which have been made to meet the necessary legal accommodations mandated? Where are the special ed federal and state monies going specifically? On another note, I am hearing teachers too are experiencing increased bills for internet services. Are they being reimbursed? Speaking of computer shortages, a report out just this weekend outlines the fact that there is a worldwide shortage of laptops and computers. Can we get an update from Mr. De La Casada on the recent ordered laptops? Are we still slated to receive them in October? On yet another subject, where are the results of the special ed audit? When will it be presented to the community via a board meeting presentation versus a simple Friday update? Moving on, is it true all counselors have been or are in the process of being brought back? It appears their union leadership was correct in questioning the downsizing. The next comments are from Katina Randau. We need to inform you of the unnecessary travesty our students and families suffered. Some parents wanted to write in comments for the board meeting, yet after hearing what they really wanted to say, we thought it was best to just send you all one message. This is to save employees from embarrassment or words of hostility. You may contact the parents if you absolutely need names of individuals of who they spoke with and interacted with. Simply email IS teachers or Dr. Fulcher, as he has received numerous emails and phone calls regarding this issue. As teachers, we have taken the calls, heard the F-bombs, and the tears of anger and frustration. Unfortunately, a big part of our work year has been spent responding to phone calls and emails of the parents of last year's returning Learning Center students. These families are wondering why they were not made aware of an independent study program at their child's home school. They were promised an alt-ed program at their home school last year. Dr. Fulcher tasked all of us independent studies teachers to start making calls to families and inform them that they would start on Monday, August 3rd. All of us completed that task the same day. Upon calling, we were surprised to hear they were already contacted and that they were only given two options, Palomar High or a learning center possibly outside of their city. Many parents told us the same thing. The main campus never gave them the third option for their child, only Palomar High or learning center. This caused so much delay in starting school, and it caused a lot of stress and confusion. IS teachers were contacting families, and in some cases, so was the admin from the main campuses. Main campuses would tell the students that there was no option to continue at their home school, and the IS teachers were calling and telling them that yes, in fact, there was an alt-ed program as promised to them last year. There was an instance when a principal told an IS teacher not to contact their former Learning Center students, even though there was a directive of Dr. Fulcher to contact the families and students. It's possible that principal made such a request because they were not aware that there was an IS program at their campus and because they were trying to alleviate the stress, anxiety, and confusion for the parents. Parents want to inform this board even after the admin learned that there was a program at their home school. In some cases, they received pressure to go elsewhere. Only 3 learning centers continued, and those students were able to continue without interruption. At many of the other sites left without a learning center, so many students were trying to find their way back to their home school. Towards the end of last year, and as registration opened, all Learning Center teams were working to prepare for a possibility of Learning Center being closed or continuing. All Learning Center students that registered were to be held in an independent studies program at their home school. We understand that did not happen, and in some cases, those students folded into the main campus where admin and counselors helped call families and help them to shop for another program. It appears as though the main campus focused on a deliberate attempt to keep parents from enrolling into independent studies at their home school, and all of them have asked why. Why is this so difficult? Also, it's important to note that all ed monies were used to start those 3 learning centers, and right after those 3 learning center programs became part of the main campus, it is those 3 main campuses that are allocating the ADA monies. In short, monies left alt ed to pay for the 3 learning centers with no way to recoup that money for alt ed's budget. There are some IS programs that are reaching capacity with just 1 teacher assigned. In our IS meeting with Dr. Fulcher, we were surprised to learn that many sites would only have 1 IS teacher. They were supposed to be 2 teachers at every site, and there were monies initially to do so. However, alt ed's budget has been impacted with the cost of continuing the 3 learning centers, and again, the ADA from those learning centers is going to the main campus. The board needs to act now and ensure that we do things right for alt ed, independent studies, families, and students. The next comments are from Chris Elam. Good evening all. I hope everyone is healthy and staying safe. I wanted to give you an update from the field on distance learning and the general state of things. There seems to be an absolute lack of any information coming directly from the district these days, and that seems to be causing a great deal of confusion and inconsistency between schools and teachers. As an example, an infographic was sent to families, and then that infographic was sent to principals who could choose to share it with their teachers. There was information in there about teacher roles that not only didn't fit with the MOU, but were entirely inaccurate. For example, it says it is the teacher's responsibility to control all student voice input. Well, unless and until we get Zoom, this isn't something we can do in Google Meet. It also states that students are required to turn on their cameras during attendance. The list of problems with that is extensive. First, we have a lot of kids currently using their own device. The district could not provide devices for all kids. Not all of these personal devices have cameras, so that would exclude those students from being able to be marked for attendance. Second, the very next bullet says that teachers should be aware of students who may not want to share their home environment. That contradicts bullet 1. Not to mention that yes, we could have kids turn their cameras on and off very briefly, 1 at a time while taking attendance, but in a 30-minute synchronous session with classes 40 plus, I'm sure you can figure out how long it would take to collect attendance in that fashion. All that being said, there are apparently situations at some schools where students are not only being required to turn on their cameras, but their citizenship grade is based on that requirement. There are also schools where students are being required to log in for the full 90 minutes with no limit of 45 minutes. While one might want to blame that on the teachers, if the district is not sending clear and concise information that doesn't violate the MOU or privacy laws, the teachers, how can you expect all teachers to consistently follow those guidelines? While I agree that a great deal of flexibility is required at this time of COVID, one of the key goals of our work this summer was to provide some form of structure and clear expectations to families and students. We can't provide that if we as teachers don't get that from the district. Between the lack of devices and internet access, the lack of clear expectations and guidelines on daily instruction, and the disaster that came from HR placing teachers, it is by far the worst start to a school year that I have experienced in 20 plus years in Sweetwater. Here's to hoping we can continue to work to find ways to fix these issues. The next comments are from Maria Fontamayor. To President Segura and the members of the school board, I am Maria Fontamayor, the president of the Council for Teaching Filipino Language and Culture of San Diego. I comment on the remarks given by the school board spokesperson during the in-car protest the Filipino community did demanding the Sweetwater Union High School District reinstate 2 Filipino American educators held on August 10, 2020 at the Sweetwater District offices in Chula Vista, covered by CBS 8. The dismissive response by the school district spokesperson, Mr. Manny Rubio, is completely insensitive, disrespectful, and unacceptable. We hope that his callous remarks are not reflective of the Sweetwater board. His remarks gave me an incredibly significant proof that this school district still does not respect cultures like ours. We did the protest to let you know that we have felt on a decision we believe was unfair, and just giving us dismissive responses is very inconsiderate. I believe that insensitive remarks given to aired voices just to provide responses are not the most responsible way to demonstrate good leadership. The school district's belief statements include the school district believing in relationships and collaboration, the value of community voice in decision-making, and believing in a culture of trust based on integrity and transparency. I am afraid these statements have been forgotten. I would like to see that our group as a Filipino American community will be able to collaborate and be given the voice as a member of this school district. Together with the Filipino community members, I will continue sending my messages to your leadership until we are given the respect we deserve. We will keep on asking for the creation of a Filipino American Advisory Council to directly voice our concerns to the superintendent and be responsible for the A, development of an equity oversight with other Sweetwater Union High School District stakeholders, focusing on ensuring that all students receive an excellent education as well as equal opportunity and diversity. B, equal hiring and advancement for faculty and personnel. And C, implementation of equity in the curriculum and support for Filipino American students. It is my hope that this comment will give you something to reflect on. Thank you very much. The next comments are from Maddie Adato. Board members, I had asked you a couple of meetings ago regarding questioning the way the CARES Act funds have been allocated and spent. However, based on the last couple of meetings, not one of the 5 of you has asked to see any accountability regarding this issue. It is your fiduciary responsibility to make sure these funds are spent correctly and report back to the public. Have you looked into any of my questions regarding the HVAC filters and electrostatic sprayers? Mr. Segura, you indicated that you were going to look into this. However, I have not heard anything back from you. I normally would ask for this information through a public records request. However, our overpaid legal department is not filling any requests using the excuse of COVID, which in itself is a bit unbelievable since most of what is ever needed on a public records request is stored digitally, and this department is still receiving a salary from the district, if I am not mistaken. I also would like to request that at least one board member finally ask and see how much we are spending in legal fees, settlements, etc., including what we have spent through JPA. I think this amount will blow your mind. From my perspective, your general counsel is involved in every aspect of running the district. However, legal affairs for the district are farmed out because of her inexperience. Ms. Hall and Mr. Segura, I don't expect either of you to ask for this information since you are so close to Ms. Carbuccia and protect and defend her. However, Mr. Solis, Mr. Pike, and Mr. Tarantino, I implore you to look into this and do the right thing. There are no further speakers.
Thank you. So, Clerk of the Board, would you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes, the following items are pulled. F3 by staff, F6 by Mrs. Hall, F9 by Mrs. Hall, F10 by Mrs. Hall, G1 by Mr. Segura and Mrs. Hall, H3 has been withdrawn by staff, K4 has been withdrawn by staff, L1 by Mr. Tarantino, M1 by Mr. Segura and the public, M2 by the public, M3 by the public, and N1 by Mr. Segura.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, I will second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Adamo,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We'll go to F3. Anybody like to go first?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Solis, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the centennial celebration for Sweetwater on August 30th, the Sunday. I know there's a small contingency going just due to COVID. I will be attending. Also, if we could I know we don't, contrary to what we hear about disrespecting people, I would like to see if we can look into a Filipino Advisory Council, see if we can have some conversations there, see if we can do something along those lines. And also, if we can look into Cox and the internet charges, or if they're charging the students for more data. Yeah, I thought that was unlimited, but if we can just look into that. And also, with regards to the special ed support, if we can get a Friday update on how we're doing with that. And also with all the schools, if we could receive an update on devices and hotspots through with all the schools to see how many they're missing, how many they need, and if we can get that by school. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Solis.
I'll go next.
Mr. Pike, thank you.
Yes, I'm also requesting, like Mr. Solis, I'm interested in seeing how many people are getting charged, because I've heard that not only from our school, but from other schools whose parents are teachers at our school, because they're teaching through the distance learning center with our students, and their kids are doing elementary school stuff in another city, and Cox Cable is charging her extra, and I think it's megabytes that they're referring to. Anyways, I think, what's our favorite reporter's name? Maybe she should hear about that, and about the fact that Cox Cable seems to be charging now and making money off of our people, because they're all having to do this inside their houses type schooling. And I don't think it's right. I think it's really something that we need to look into, and we need to get a hold of people at Cox Cable or whoever we need to talk to and find out, A, are they charging more? Which obviously it sounds like they are. And B, why during this time frame? And maybe if enough people in the public knew about it, then they wouldn't be doing that. But I just don't think that's right at all. It's really, and the second thing is, I'd like to have an update on some of the information that's coming out about our computers, whether or not they're actually working well. I know we got some secondhand things, and I know people are complaining. So we could just get an update. I know Mr. Solis has asked for a lot of those, but I seem to be getting questions and things from people saying, hey, we tried this computer that my kid's it's not working, they're not using it, whatever. I know it's difficult, but everybody's probably trying to do their best. But sometimes it seems like for example, the computers aren't coming in. Mrs. Cheers related to the fact that the whole world's behind with them. So it's not unusual to find out that we're not getting ours on time either. But as long as we keep informing the public, I think, and letting them know, hey, we've had a delay. It's not because we're not giving the money. It's they're just not able to produce them fast enough. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. I'll go next. So I would just, first of all, I'd like to wish my wife a happy birthday today. She's downstairs making dinner. No, not really. We actually got takeout, which I'll be enjoying later on. And then I would like to, one note here, I'd like to get a report on our ethnic studies planning effort and see where that's at. I know I've asked for that a number of times over the years, but there seems to be a lot of momentum around that with some bills at the in the assembly and that sort of thing. But we could do better. So I'd really like to know where that's at. That's all I have. Who would like to go next? Mr. Tarantino.
Yes. Now that the dust has settled in terms of staffing, we're at our, we already passed our 15th day. I'd like an accounting of how many teachers how many teachers and counselors were actually hired back, how many are still RIF'd, and again, just an accounting of where we are with it, and perhaps in cabinet, it could be discussed whether or not we should put out a news article in terms of how many teachers we were able to bring back, because we got pounded pretty hard about the number of layoffs. And if that number has decreased significantly, I think that the public needs to know, because there was a lot of consternation about students not having teachers and not having counselors. So if that could be done, I'd appreciate it. Also, to piggyback on what Ms. Rondow said, there is an awful lot of confusion about independent studies. First of all, principals are not aware of the fact that independent studies, even though they're not part of their school site, they are co-located on the school sites when we are able to, again, meet in person. Also, there seems to be some kind of confusion in terms of whether or not the students in independent studies will be able to participate in the graduation ceremonies on their home campus, if they can participate in athletics when that starts up in December. There is no message discipline. And it sounds like parents are left hanging in terms of, I know of one student that it took 2.5 weeks to get transferred from the Sweetwater Learning Center to independent studies. And the parent didn't even know about independent studies. They, like Ms. Rondow said, parent was given the option, SUHSD Learning Center or Palomar. And she was under the impression that her son could go to the home school in an alternative setting. So some kind of information on that could be done on a Friday update. That would be okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Ms. Hall?
Thank you, President Segura. I agree with much what my fellow board members have already requested, and yourself as well. One of the things I would like to report on what I did this past week. I was in attendance at a collaborative, at the Imperial Beach Collaborative, and during that session we had a presentation from UCSD, Dr. Susan Rice, I believe her name is Susan Rice, who heads up the COVID testing, the development of a COVID vaccine. She and another doctor are part of a research group that from UCSD that are heading up those efforts. And she presented not only data about how our county is being affected, but also, as we all know, here in the South Bay, how hard hit communities of color are in particular, especially those without probably a lot of ability to cope with those outbreaks because of lack of access to good medical care, equitable, having to work and still try to maintain a home that's safe, and maybe living multiple families in a residence. So there's a lot of factors that go in all of that. We learn about that every day when we look at the zip code and the number of cases by zip code just in our county alone, how that reality is playing out. So what the main goal of this COVID vaccine is, they're really trying to, at this point, to enroll adults ages 18 years and over into their COVID-19 prevention study, which will be ongoing for longer than 1.5 years probably, but through that, they'll be testing the vaccines with the people. Not everybody, of course, will be getting a test vaccine, but what they're looking for are people who are more likely to be exposed to COVID-19, people with underlying medical conditions, but those conditions at the time they're in the study are stable, so they're not under immediate threat to have a big flare-up on their underlying conditions. People who live or work in elder care facilities, people over the age of 65, people who work in jails or prisons, people from racial and ethnic groups that have been impacted in greater numbers by the pandemic, such as African Americans, Latinos, Asian Pacific Americans, and American Indians, Alaskan Natives. So a lot of those very people live in our South Bay and in our district and our families within our district. So I'm hoping that we could have either presentation by Dr. Rice to our board in one of our upcoming board meetings so that we can share this information with our community, or to have a special town hall around it, because I think it's really key. Our community, once a vaccine is developed, our community will need access to that vaccine. And that hasn't always historically happened for communities of color or communities with less, maybe are economically disadvantaged. So I think it's really key that we help inform our community about what the study is and how they can participate if they're willing, because it could also give access to our community to the vaccine once a viable one is developed. So I will share this information with Dr. Aguirre, and maybe he can put some of the information on our district website for people to check. I also think that our website could be updated a little bit more with more recent information about what's happening at our schools, where the schools are, how to get a device if you don't have one yet, how to connect your family, what some of the other numbers are. I know we have still that we started August 3rd link in there, but I think some of the more recent information could be updated and accessed by people that are able to get to an internet and a device and can get it on our website. For those that can't, I think we really need to think outside of the box about how to engage and inform that community, and we've got to think about different methods of reaching out. And just like Dr. Aguirre mentioned, the young man that wrote the article, the fantastic article, he talked about going to the laundromat with his mom to do the laundry, and about keeping safe and trying to be safe while you're doing those kinds of activities, going to the grocery store. So in my mind, some of the ways we could communicate in multiple languages is by putting out posters in those very areas. So when families are coming and going, we're informing them, especially the ones that don't have access to internet at this point in time. They might be able to have a phone number or have a friend call for them if they don't have their own phone. I just wanted to put that out there. I think that should be looked into. The other piece of it is, along with with my fellow board members, I know that the devices and the internet connectivity, I've heard that Dr. Paul Gothold at the County Office of Ed has put together a package with different providers in order to enable school districts to provide internet access at a lower price. I don't know how all that is set up, but I would definitely say that there's multiple providers in that work that he's done, and so it would be a good thing for us to look into that and see if that we might take advantage of some of those, get on board with that and have it provided. So I know I've been asking Dr. Aguirre, and he'll nod his head, because I've been talking to him several times over the last few weeks about devices, and internet access. We all know it's a very key element of distance learning, and I think that we're getting to the point where some of the challenges are not always going to be addressed easily, but I'm looking forward to whatever kind of report he does give us. And I would like to see a report on independent study at a board meeting, not just a Friday update. I would like to really have a presentation on what alternative ed is looking like these days. I believe that would be, we would be well served as a board to be informed about that, and also along with the special ed pieces, which is always top priority. And it is challenging now, because I think a lot of things were pending what the state guidance was going to be around special education. So I think now that the state has kind of put that out, I believe more of that. We need to really have an understanding of where we're going with ours. And Miss Sturm Gonzalez we just got her at the district to head that effort up. So I think we need to understand there might be a little bit of a time frame needed to give her to kind of catch up and get her feet on board with everything. But I do expect to hear good things coming out of that effort. So thank you. I want to thank Dr. Gary, and I want to thank Desiree, because I really feel like she is doing a great job as a student board member. And I'm really glad that she's pushing those advocacy efforts and reaching out not only within our own communities, but across school districts that maybe are a step ahead of us in some ways, maybe haven't even thought about some of the things you might be thinking about, Ms. Adamo, but I really appreciate your efforts. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall. So that's everybody. Now let's move to F6. And that was pulled by Ms. Hall.
I really appreciate the work done by labor negotiations and our bargaining representatives. But on this memorandum of understanding on the pages after the summary, under safety, which is A, on the number 2, I was kind of confused by the paragraph because it didn't seem to work quite for me. It seemed like there was a couple of words missing. Is that could that be possible?
Yes, there's a couple of words missing, Mrs. Hall. Like an of and a the are missing. Really, the overarching point here is that we recognize that that facial coverings and PPEs are essential. Both of those are two very separate things. And in the community, folks are wearing facial coverings. And so while we will have them available for staff that are required to come to work at the district office, they also have the ability, if they have a face covering of their own that they wish to wear, they can also wear that instead of the one that's provided by the district.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have for that item. I'll make a motion to approve F6.
Second, Solis.
Moved by Mrs. Hall, seconded by Mr. Solis. Vote, please.
Adamo? Hall?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike? You're muted, Mr. Pike.
Yes.
Thank you. Segura?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. F9 and Mrs. Hall, I think your microphone might be rubbing up against your shirt or something. We're getting a lot of kind of noises. I don't know if that's you, but it seems to be happening when you're talking.
Okay. Is that all right now? Am I okay now?
It's still like we're hearing wind or something. I guess it's what it is.
It's because I have an I have a fan on.
Well, it is hot.
There hasn't been the nice breeze that I was experiencing all through June and July and the beginning of August. It's kind of like waned. So, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. F9, and that was pulled by you, Ms. Hall.
Right. I have a question about this is grant funding for 7 through 12 programs, and there's a local Rest Haven Children's Health Fund. When I read through part of this document, the award letter, it says it's been awarded a partial grant. to purchase a Welch Allen Spot Vision Screener. And my question around that is, how much does this item actually cost? Because if that's only a partial grant, what is the cost of the item? Because in this, it says there's no matching funds required and there's no fiscal impact. So that's my question to start with.
So I'll ask Mr. Rubio, since he processed this agenda item, to provide a response. Mr. Rubio?
Well, I think this would be considered a local grant, correct? A local resource. I think this is Dr. Schockheld would be able to clarify that.
Correct. We would be charging this to what is one of our 9,000 account resource codes. Yeah, so it'd be recorded there.
It would be recorded there, and we would be charging indirect costs, correct?
Typically, probably for this one, depends on the terms of the agreement. I can check with that.
That's exactly my point. There should be no tip depending on, if we're accepting money, we need, because there's a cost. There was a cost to do the work around the grant. There was a cost to do around if we have to issue a purchase order to purchase the item, if we have to pay the item with processing an invoice, accounts payable has to cut a check. All those are costs, indirect costs that the district bears. And I would expect any grant that we have, local or any of the other allowable, we would charge the indirect costs. That's my expectation as a board member. So when you have something like this, there is a cost. It might be minor, but all those other things, I mean, I remember when this is probably 30 years ago or longer than that, but I don't want to really tell you how long. The study was on the cost of cutting a check, just on cutting a B warrant check was around $25 because of all the things that had to happen for that check to go into the mail out to the vendor or out to pay for whatever that item was. That was a long time ago. So I know the costs have gone up since then. I just want to make that point because we are in fiscal distress. And I think we need to take opportunity, but we need to set the ground rules like they should be set. Thank you. That's the only question I have.
And so moved.
You're muted, Mr. Segura.
I'll second it. Moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by me. Vote, please.
Actually, it's moved by Mr. Solis.
Okay, there you go.
Adamo?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Let's go to F10.
Moved by Mrs. Hall.
Oh, by Mrs. Hall, thank you.
Right. I think I believe we've had I would like to see the agreements attached to board items from now on. I know that we've had a few board items where things go through and there's nothing but the board summary. However, I know that there's probably agreements for every one of these. And since we only have a record and access to those agreements, when they're on a board item, attached as a board item, I would expect that we start having those things coming to us. I know that we're not going to be seeing individual students' information, but there's an agreement about how much services will cost for each of these different providers. So I'd like to see that information when we're approving an item. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Solis?
Thank you. That Mr. Tarantino motioned and Mr. Solis seconded. Thank you. Vote, please.
Adamo,
Yes.
Hall,
No.
Solis,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
Okay, let's move to G1.
Pulled by you and Ms.
Pulled by me and Miss Hall. Miss Hall, go first.
Yeah.
So I was looking for my notes on that and can't seem to find it, but if I remember right, my question was on page 16 of that app, and it mentioned that it showed that there was 2 entities that we did not have a consultation with, and I just kind of want to know what that meant. Does that mean they don't have students that need those, they'll be utilizing the titles, or what does that mean?
Good evening, Mr. Segura. Good evening, board members. That's a great question. So our private schools, we try to reach out as soon as the application comes out. With those 2, our state and federal program manager attempted at least 5 different contacts, and there was no response from those schools.
So that just means that we don't deal with them going forward on any of the titles, or
Right, there's a certain amount of time that we provide them for that consultation, and they did not respond within any of our timelines.
Okay, that was the only question I had. I just want to make sure it wasn't gonna look bad on us, and we did our due diligence. So that was all I had with that. And then Mrs. Hall, go ahead. You pull it as well?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering where all the schools are for the Title I Part A page. I don't know what page number it is, but I only see a portion of our schools listed here. You know why?
Let me take a look, Ms. Hall, real quickly.
I mean, SUHSD's not on there. National City Middle's not on there. San Ysidro's not on, so I wonder why we're only getting a few of the schools.
It looks like it may have been cut off, so we will provide the entire document. It looks like not the complete document was uploaded. I apologize for that. It looks like there's a page missing.
Okay. All right, because is this reporting how we spent the money or how we is it a ranking for the coming year?
So there's a little bit of both. There's the 1920, actually there's 1819 expenditure reports, the 24-month year-to-date expenditures. And then there's also the authorization for the 1920 and the expenditures.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it also has the certification for the 2021 for proposed budgets.
Do you have school level information on all the different titles for how much the expenses were by those periods that you mentioned?
Sure, we do. Unfortunately, in the CAR system, that reporting wasn't during this time period, during this con out, but it is usually applied throughout the year. We can provide that.
All right. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve item G1.
I'll second. Solis?
Motion by Hall, second by Mr. Solis. Vote, please.
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, let's move on to, looks like L1.
Yes, pulled by Mr. Tarantino.
Mr. Tarantino.
Yes, thank you, President Segura. I was looking through all of the changes that have been made, and I noticed that whenever there was a librarian that was noticed in terms of change of status, they were moved into a full-time teaching position, and my understanding was that we negotiated with SEA that they would have a split assignment, either 0.2 or 0.4, if I remember correctly, in the library, and then teaching. So I was wondering why the discrepancy.
So good evening, President Segura, board members, Dr. Aguirre. This is Tom Winters. I heard most of it had to do with, I believe, a librarian and the composition of their position.
Ms. Winters, I don't think I saw any librarian that was a 0.2 or 0.4 librarian and the rest teaching. They're all, like, if you take the example from on page 4 of 10, there are two librarians, and they're both full-time teachers, one at Chula Vista Middle and one at Mar Vista Academy. And that's consistently throughout, but I could be wrong, but I didn't see any librarian that had the correct assignment.
So I see what you're looking.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Winters.
No, I said I see what you're looking at. For example, Ms. Hernandez, if you look at her from Mar Vista Academy, it says 1.0 FTE, teacher and library media teacher, but it doesn't break it down in terms of what her other work would be. So I'm going to need to research those for you.
Okay.
And get a specific answer on each librarian.
Okay. I was just, my concern was that I was wondering if we did not follow through with the agreement that we negotiated. That was my concern, because it doesn't look, on paper, it doesn't look like it was, but I can understand what you're saying. So thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Winters, do you mind if I jump in?
Sure.
So if you'll see the dates on the top of this agreement, Mr. Tarantino, they're personnel actions from July 1st to July 31st. As you know, school started on August 3rd, and we did reach agreement related to librarians very late in July, and we're working on, these teachers had already been transitioned 100% from a library position into the classroom, and then we have worked to add those back through new PARs at either a 0.2, a 0.4, a 0.6 as called for in those agreements. And then you'll also see coming forward that where we had to call people back from the recall list of the 5 librarians that were actually laid off, that you'll see going forward that those were all actually called back in some portion of their position. So I believe if you look at the August list will show those changes, but these were the changes from librarian media into a full-time 1.0 position before the library changes were put into effect.
Okay, and yet I see that there were some learning center teachers who are still in the learning center. So I guess, because I could think of a few learning center teachers that are still in the learning center, and their assignment, I guess, was correct. So anyway, okay, I'll wait for August.
Staffing is a process, and so you do things step by step, and so these reconciliations are a point in time to get you through that month.
Okay, thank you. I will move, if there's no other questions, I will move L1.
I will second. Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Vote, please.
Adamo?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great. Let's move to M1.
Yes, I have comments from one speaker. These are from Kathleen Cheers. If I may, I would like further clarification on number 4, specifically the indications monies are being used for 3rd Avenue. It was my understanding we sold the property. This appears to indicate it is still being identified as a project. Perhaps there's something I am not understanding. While I am planning a more in-depth analysis in the coming week, a cursory review of this agenda item appears to indicate many of the projects are seeing an increase to their budgets. While I am laser focused on Prop O, BB, and DD expenditures, I too track projects. Thank you. Are there any further comments? Told by you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Hold on 1 second. Hey, go. Come on. Go. Thank you. Yes, I pulled that as well, and my question was around number 3. You know, it just says, you know, on the front it just shows it's ROTC portables, but it's much beyond that. I just kind of wanted that talked about, and what is the $3.5 million is going to be spent on.
Good evening. Thank you. So with regards to San Ysidro, the scope of the work, well, let's step backwards for a second. A while back, the board approved probably a better part of almost a year ago for us to do programming and preliminary design for multiple projects related to CFD. And we're doing those in a step-by-step approach to align it with the cash flow that's available to spend down through CFD funds. So what you're seeing with San Ysidro, the increase is the design is continuing to move. We now have the reconciliation for the full project forecast for the completion all the way through construction. And that's what is reflected with the full project budget being requested for the 3.5. What's included in that project is we're actually replacing in kind all of the ROTC buildings. When they were originally set on the campus at original construction 15 years ago, they were meant to be there for a few months. They were literally just kind of put on the dirt. The buildings have been sitting in that manner ever since. Path of travel is not completed. There's a significant deterioration to the buildings. So we're replacing the building in kind, reorienting the buildings to actually face the main campus, addressing all path of travel issues. And probably one of the most important pieces is currently students have to leave the fenced and secure perimeter of the campus to go and enter into the ROTC facility right now. And we're going to be readjusting all the fence lines. And so the ROTC program will be completely enclosed within the property and actually oriented in a way for a little bit more visual security and protection from the street. And so that's what it's for. We're also maintaining all of their drill areas and all the other components that they have currently exist within their program.
Okay, so all that $3.5 million is for the ROTC work that you just laid out?
Yes, sir. It's for the procurement of the modular buildings and all the associated site work, construction, all of the additional soft costs forecasted for the project.
Okay.
Inspection services, et cetera.
Thank you. And in regards to the public comment from Ms. Cheers on the 3rd Avenue, could you explain that? Where it says.
No, I can, and that's actually a great catch by Ms. Cheers, and we'll get that addressed. Yes, 3rd Avenue was sold. We have on the CIP, there is underneath that item, it's money that's for site evaluations. It's really forecast for Moss Avenue, Arizona L Street, and up until today, 3rd Avenue. So we can remove the reference to 3rd Avenue moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions on L1? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve L1.
This is actually M1.
M1, sorry, M1.
I threw you there. I
The
said.
monthly progress report within the capital improvement program.
I'll second.
Moved by Hall, seconded by Mr. Tarantino. Vote, please.
Adamo,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, M2.
Yes, I have comments from one speaker. These are from Kathleen Cheers. Page 1 of 4, please explain the specifics of the notice of exemption documents as required by SECA being prepared. Page 2 of 4, please clarify why the construction management services for pre-construction was not included in the overall price of the project. Also note, we are already being warned of a change order to increase the price. Why? Page 4 of 4, in on this project, please explain the specifics of the exemption documents you are preparing. Thank you. There are no further comments.
Do we have any comments from the board?
Yeah, if we can answer those questions, I think that would be good.
And then I have one more request of Janaea when you're done.
So Deanne, can you help me with seeing, I know there was M2, there was lots of different consultants, so I'm not sure which one we're specifically talking about. Oh, of course my screen is blurry.
Page 1 is place work for East Lake High Title IX.
Correct. So as we're looking at some of our projects moving forward and where we have the potential for overlap on multiple projects to be occurring at the same time or near each other, when it comes to the environmental study and the CEQA requirements that we are looking at for projects, we're looking at them as best we can in the totality of the potential work and how it may cross over on one another. And so we are taking notices of exemption for these field projects. It's just a way to be open with the work that we're doing, the construction that will occur. We are looking at, and it kind of dovetails, I think, to one of the other questions for the construction management services. When we initially started these were two very separate projects, but as things have continued to progress and as we're starting to look at COVID, the impacts of sports and returning, we're actually looking at having to align these two projects as an energy or a savings for costs. And so we're lining ourselves up to where they can still continue to remain separate and or together. The notice of exemptions really are just benchmarking the work that we're doing in front of us. It's meeting our CEQA compliance in the event that we have both of these projects under construction and potentially at the beginnings of what we're looking forward for the modernization of the library at East Lake as well. So this one is for the construction management services, and we're asking, because going back to what I was referencing, we're looking at them to
Cut out.
I think she just froze.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think she's frozen.
I'm back.
Hey.
Back. All right.
Apologies. My Surface said good night, so I apologize. So this one is for, we're just asking for them to do construction management services specific to the track and field. If we are able to align this project from a timing standpoint, from a field usage need and access to the fields, because we're really going to have to be balancing. East Lake's already so limited on fields, and then looking at the forwardness of returning to sports COVID, we obviously can't take away all of their fields for remediation of track and field and for the installation of the Title IX softball field. So we're trying to put ourselves in a position where we have some flexibility to be able to determine the most efficient path forward. That's why we're only asking for the pre-construction services right now, for the constructability reviews and the estimating for this project. As we getting to where we know when we can actually go to bid for these projects, then we will take a look at this combined with the softball project and look at efficiencies and make a determination for if we are just going to extend construction management services specific to the track and field or blend them. So I will be coming back to you one way or another, but with clarity of how we're going to be packaging those projects.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Yes.
Sure.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Well, I think Mr. Pike had a
Oh,
question.
Mr. Pike. Yes, sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
Pike.
Janaea, there's been a lot of talk about the AC units and the filters and stuff like that. Can you just give us a 30-second update on really what's happening and what you guys are doing? I think there's a lot of confusion. I figure you could.
Yes. Thank you for that. So there has been a lot of confusion, and we have been doing our diligence in terms of really making sure that we understand everything that we need to do and what we're going to get for the action plan that we're going to put in place. And there's a lot of things that need to be measured and weighed. And so myself and Mr. Malone, the maintenance director, have spent time talking at length with consultants, et cetera, and really understanding the particularness of COVID as it relates to the filter systems. And so we have decided, and we are moving forward with actions to procure the MERV 13s. And so that is our first order is in motion right now. We're doing our forecasting for what we would need for the remainder of this school year for the installation and replacement of those. We will be aligning that installation in with the return to students and staff to campuses, because those filters require replacement on a quarterly basis. And so we want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck for that. So Ron's team will be putting together a plan for that as we continue to work with the rest of the district in terms of determining when we will have all students and staff back on campus. We've also procured for each campus 2 electrostatic sprayer backpacks. We are in the process of ordering 2 more for each campus, and have also provided the campuses with the information for the small handheld sprayers so that they can procure supplemental ones as well for their campuses.
And I would ask Janaea, if we could provide a Friday update, and then we could post that memo on the district's website so that the public can have access to the type of planning that we're putting in place. I think that's important information to make sure we share.
Thank you very much.
We can do that. There's actually many other layers to the work that we're doing for PPE and for return to campus. Thank you.
Thanks, Janae. I appreciate it. Dr. Aguirre, that's exactly what I was thinking too. That way everybody knows. Thank you.
Move to approve. Solis.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Adama?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
That was M2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go on to M3.
Yes, I have comments from one speaker. These are from Kathleen Cheers. The infamous issue of change orders has begun to raise its ugly head. Page 1 of 1. I have great difficulty based on my involvement and knowledge I gained on Montgomery High projects 1 and 2, why our district is not overseeing these projects in a more cost-effective manner. Number 1, why wasn't the decision to convert the landscape part of the initial scope of the project? Number 2, why didn't district personnel address the skateboard deterrence and drainage issues from the onset? Surely after the many projects which have been completed, staff and project managers should have had these issues jump out at them from the very onset. Number 5, was school site staff included on the initial planning of this project, or were they consulted after the fact, which would explain the need of the accessible curb ramp, or is it an issue related to the Americans with Disabilities? In either case, yet again, poor planning. Number 6, please explain the need for tube steel fencing. Why wasn't it part of the initial plan? It is more than concerning recent projects are giving the appearance of not being well thought out, designed, or managed. Number 4, Trustee Segura, I am going to acknowledge the 3,365 saved for electrical lines. Hopefully this is due to a quality electrical union contractor. Thank you. There are no further comments?
Thank you. Janaea, could you answer any of those questions?
I can. So with regard to, and I knew this was going to be a hot one tonight, I knew that was going to happen, that's fine. We have a unique space at Olympian that was just this big pile of dirt, and we went back and forth pre-planning and whether or not we were going to include that. And at one point, with the costs coming in as high as they were, when we were doing estimating, we couldn't fit it in. And then we did get some savings realized as the bids came in and they were more user-friendly. And so we did. We talked about it at length internally. We made a decision. It's the 46,000 right there. It's a pretty significant space in size. It's at the north side of the Olympian track and field between there and the stadium, or there in the gym. And we went ahead and we put synthetic turf in and we landscaped that area. So it's completed. It has a very much a park-like feel. And we are taking away from that as we're doing the design for the other fields that we're looking for these same kind of moments. Because it's one of those things that you make the decision not to do it, and then it always comes back to what is the best product that we can deliver. And so we made a decision to do that. And I think it's one that we're going to get our cost per wear on that decision long term.
Thank you.
So, and then the other one, go ahead.
I have a question on that, your answer there, Janaea. And that is, did this go through the facility subcommittee?
Which part?
Well, you said that you decided to, I forget the phrase you used when you were describing it, but it was a decision that staff made, correct?
Yeah.
Did you run that decision through this facility subcommittee?
No, we meet with the facility subcommittee either 2 to 3 times a year, sometimes quarterly. No, this was a decision that was made internally with staff.
Thank you.
And, the other items.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, what I was going to say, the other items, things just change and, they need to be modified. I don't really see any issue with that. And I know the boring of the electrical, I can understand that, because if you dig a trench, you're opening up the earth, and that causes a lot of things, especially if there's a drainage system nearby, and to bore is definitely the easier way to do it, and safer way to do it, and less disruptive way to do it than doing a trench. So unless you wanted to add something else.
I don't. I mean, it's construction. There's puts and takes sometimes. And so we try to control that and mitigate it as best as we can. And this is where we are.
Yes, it is. I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Move a second. Vote, please.
Adama?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
N1, I had pulled that, but you have answered those questions were asked during F3, so I'm withdrawing my questions. So I'll make a motion for approval of that. Unless there's a moved and seconded. Vote please.
Adamo,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Outstanding. I think that's everything, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think all I need to say is meeting adjourned.